4 years ago, myself and 3 panellists sat on a Zoom call before it was cool to record a podcast. My Wi-Fi instantly broke, but the second time we tried it, it actually worked. And that was the first Grid Talk podcast. And here we are, over 300 episodes later, and for the first time, we are all in the same room recording one of these shows together. This is the first ever Grid Talk live from Manchester 7 Oaks. Thanks to 7 Oaks for letting us to do this here. And yeah, my name is George Howson, and joining me today, we have fellow Grid Talk co-hosts Owain Medford.
Hello.
Tom Downey.
Hello.
And Sophia Richmond.
Hi.
But before we get into the episodes, it's sponsors time. BetOnline is your #1 source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines and matchups for baseball, boxing, golf and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favourite casino and card games available to play right from your phone. Head over to the website on your mobile device to sign up today and get your slice of the action for a 50% off bonus with the code BLEAV, B-L-E-A-V, and that's the welcome bonus on there. BetOnline, where the game starts. So we're going to be reviewing the Austrian Grand Prix today. We all watched it together here in the pub, and yeah, let's go from the guys who finished at the bottom to the guys who finished at the top. And we're going to have to start with Haas. Hülkenberg was looking relatively decent until his car blew up, unfortunately, and Kevin Magnussen had an awful day. He was down in 19th, the last finisher. Sophia, I mean, try and sum up their day today. It's not. I'm starting you with a very tough one, to be honest. It's just another one to forget for Haas. Despite their decent qualifying pace, they're just nowhere in the race.
Yeah. That, and also like the sprint, given the fact that Kevin Magnussen had to start from the pit lane, we knew that Haas was kind of done for the day, unfortunately. Hülkenberg, it was his 150th race start as well, so that's one that he does not want to remember pretty much for it. But yeah, Gunnstein was on the wall a few times and like just talking to the rest of the Sky team, and it seemed so positive, and then the minute like Hulk with catching on fire, and then the hits that Kevin Magnussen was getting all the time as well, it just wasn't their day. But hopefully, I mean, the sprint race, they did quite well. Hülkenberg did quite well, I should say, as well, which was really good to have. But let's hope for Silverstone. I think they would bring upgrades potentially into Silverstone as well, or just after Silverstone. So hopefully that will turn the luck around for next weekend, or when we go to Spa or Zandvoort as well down the line.
Yeah, they have a real chronic lack of pace in the race, unfortunately for them. They did get some points in the sprint, though. That was a better day for them yesterday, but today, definitely one not to write home about. But yeah, we'll move on to the next guys. AlphaTauri next. Yuki Tsunoda down in 18th. He very much had another day to forget as well. He was. I think he had some contact damage to his car. De Vries as well. Started from the pit lane. Everyone would start from the pit lane, but he just flew wide in the fourth corner. It's not a good day for him. Again, Owain, I'm not giving you a very easy one to talk about here, to be honest.
Well, no, it's great to talk about because I just get to criticise. You know, it was.
Go ahead.
Obviously, De Vries has not been flavour of the month, within the Red Bull fraternity in their driver academy for quite a while. Obviously, Marco's not very particularly happy with him, and Tsunoda's been on a fairly recent run of form, but managed to. Even worse, picking up penalty. I think he was the only person who picked up a 10-second penalty for track limits. Obviously he smashed his wing at the start, and he was finding every single way he could find to sabotage his race. And I think it's kind of a miracle that he's ended up in front of the Haas.
I think that probably tells you how bad the Haas have been this weekend more than anything. But yeah, and I think he also got in trouble for not serving a penalty correctly, which. Surprisingly, he's the second guy to do that this season. I think Ocon did it earlier in the season. So yeah, penalties on top of penalties on top of more penalties, and he still didn't finish last. So that's something, I suppose. But yeah, definitely not a day to remember for AlphaTauri at their kind of home race. We'll speak about McLaren next. Very, very bittersweet day for them today. Lando Norris all the way up in 5th. Fantastic performance today for him at a track where he's made a real habit of some excellent results. Unfortunately, Oscar Piastri down in 17th. You might think, oh well, he's not really performed too well there. But Tom, he was pretty unlucky in a way. He was caught up in an incident with a bunch of other cars, damaged his front wing, and sadly could never truly recover from there.
Yeah, I felt for Piastri a bit today because he was looking all right, and then he went to make a move on. I actually can't remember who, but whoever it was he was making a move on. Stroll was attempting and somewhat failing to defend position on the exit to turn 3. he just moved across the track, across a big concertina, and because Piastri was already committed to making the move up the inside of turn 3, it was just game over by that point. His front wing just bent and crunched, and he had to box for a new wing, and that was sayonara really. But Lando Norris, yeah, much better race for him, and I think a lot of us were, me included, were almost expecting Lando to just go backwards, because that McLaren just chews its tyres like something you wouldn't believe. I think only the Haas is probably really worse than it for chewing tyres. But no, he had some really good battles. He was the official driver of the day. He was our driver of the day in Grid Talk. I think I did vote Perez. Please don't kill me. It was probably one of Lando's best races of the season. It did make me chuckle a bit when I think it was the race engineer said, "Please tell me every time you see track limits." And Lando said, "I'll be talking all the time." So it's a good race for McLaren, and I know they brought upgrades this weekend, so they can definitely take some comfort from it. And I think people need to perhaps not look at Piastri too harshly, because he's still getting used to that car, and the upgrades might not be on both cars. You couldn't blame McLaren for only putting them on Lando's car if that is the case. But lots of positives to take for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a die-hard McLaren fan myself, I was very happy with that, I'm not going to lie. But Sophia, while we're speaking about McLaren, is this kind of a resurgence for them? Do you think this might be the kind of result that kind of kick-starts them to potentially overtake Alpine for that 5th spot? Because Alpine didn't have a good weekend this weekend.
No, definitely not. I mean, I think it's more for Norris than it is for Oscar. He's still kind of finding his way in the cars. Like, Oscar's had some good overtaking today, has been kind of consistent, but consistently out of the points as well. I think with the upgrades, it's definitely made such a difference. You even saw it in the straights, just how powerful it is when there was so many battles, not just on today's race, but also yesterday's sprint race as well. Some of the close battles they were having with Charles and a few other drivers and Hamilton as well. It definitely has made a really good improvement, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how they will be at McLaren. How McLaren will be at Silverstone for next weekend. But yeah, definitely needed upgrades, and it's actually well thought out upgrades for it.
Yeah, it seems to be doing the trick for them, absolutely, and they're getting on top of that tyre wear issue. They didn't seem to really be struggling with that today. So I've given you one Alfa, Owain, so let's make it 2 for 1. Alfa Romeo. Unfortunately, a bit like AlphaTauri, I think you'll be criticising them more than anything. A very nondescript day for them, didn't really do anything. Bottas down in 16th, Zhou in 14th. That's kind of an indication of where they are really at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's the midfield's so tight that it's really difficult. I mean, we saw them consistently be in battle, so it wasn't for lack of trying, and they really did, gave it a go. But they, it just wasn't good enough. They just weren't fast enough. They didn't have the speed, and the Williams were ahead of them. Even after penalties, which says a lot. They did put up a fairly good fight. I have no idea. I believe it was Bottas who had a bit of the wing hanging off, and I have no idea how he didn't get the black and orange meatball. They were looking at track limits in the stewards' ring, but they didn't see a bit of wing hanging off the car, flapping about like that. So I don't think it ever actually got fixed. But yeah, no, I think they just they didn't really do much, and they finished out the points because of it. And I think this might have been one of their better chances actually to get points, bearing in mind everyone and their dog was getting track limits penalties in front of them.
Yeah, and we will touch on the track limits penalties over this weekend, because quite frankly it's been ridiculous. I think even by the standards of some of our F1 game lobbies, it's been even more than that. We will touch on that in a bit. But first, let's talk about another team that unfortunately finished just outside of the points. Williams, Alexander Albon in 11th, Logan Sargent in 13th. Unlucky for him, but Tom, it wasn't a bad day for them really. Albon was in the points for quite a bit of it. He almost made my bold prediction come true for once. So close with that one. But there is pace in that car, but they probably just needed a few more retirements. Only one retirement today, which is unusual for Austria.
Yes, and they were I say they were unlucky. They both got track warning penalties, if my memory serves me correctly. So, they didn't help themselves, but as we saw this weekend, track limits is so tight, especially around Austria, and like you said, it's a conversation we'll get into. Albon, he's really sort of like showing that he's not here to just make up the numbers, and he's dragging that Williams to places where it doesn't belong. I did think that the Williams, yeah, that is the car he's still in, hasn't changed since about 15 seconds ago. You know, I did think, and I think I did say beforehand, that he would have a good weekend here, because it's fairly similar in some ways to Canada. You know, lots of straights, and you know, it'll suit a car which is better at sort of top speed. Obviously, sharp corners than Canada, but you know, obviously we've got 3 DRS zones. And he was the ticket master general of the DRS train for some points, but yeah, just almost in the points. If he wouldn't have had the penalty, you know, there's a good chance he'd have been in points, because he was putting in some staunch defence. And I've got to be honest, I was really impressed with Logan Sargent today. I know he didn't finish in the points, and I know he finished behind his teammate with a track limits penalty. However, sorry, just seeing a message. Yeah, it is. Can you tell we've not done this live like this before? Logan Sargent, I think, probably one of his better race weekends, because I thought he was going to do quite well in Canada. Obviously, didn't got the DNF or the rest of it. He's showing promising signs, and all these rumours about Mick going there. Why would you want Mick Schumacher? He's going to cost your arm or leg in accident damage. Yeah, so you know, both drivers did well, and they look to be settling in with that car. So I look forward to what they can bring in the next few races.
Yeah, absolutely. Sargent definitely with a better weekend. I mean, he's come under some criticism, which I think is unfair, because he's coming up against Alexander Albon in the same car, and that Williams is not a particularly great car. So yeah, definitely a better weekend for them. Nothing to show for it points-wise, unfortunately, but that's the way it goes sometimes. Alpine, Sophia. Pierre Gasly in 9th, getting a couple of points for the team. Ocon just outside in 12th. I mean, how do you rate their weekend this weekend? Because they are the 5th fastest team in general, but maybe you'd expect a bit more from them. Then again, a bit like Williams, probably just needed a few more retirements up ahead to get some better placings.
Yeah, I mean, I think so too. They're probably one of the more consistent bottom points kind of team. Gasly and Ocon have been quite consistent throughout seasons with the different teams. I mean, both of them had track limits warnings, and I think Ocon might have had a penalty as well. I can't remember, but there was multiple penalties, and then also the pit lane incident as well, with Ocon getting a 5-second penalty for that, with the contact. I think it was Logan Sargent, or the close contact of the unsafe release. But yeah, it's going well, I think, for Alpine. I think, like I said, they've just been so consistent more than anything else with how they are performing. To be honest, was expecting a lot better, I think, from Gasly. Obviously, he was in the points, which is great for them for the constructors battle and everything. But I was expecting more of a higher finish. I was expecting both of the teams actually to be in the points. But like you said, probably with a few more retirements, I think that could have been a better case for them to be probably P6 or P8 maybe even for them. But hopefully we'll see how it is in Silverstone next week as well. I don't think there's any upgrades coming in, because they had upgrades early on in the season with a whole other incidences. I think that was Baku. Baku, with all the different track problems and driver problems, catching on fire and everything. But yeah, I'm expecting more for the rest of the season from Alpine. Like I said, I do think they might even take 4th in constructors. That might be a bold. That might be a little bit bold, I understand. But I think they have the potential to do that by the end of the season.
That is a very bold pick. Who do you think they might overtake for 4th? Ferrari?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe. I don't know. Well, we'll see. I think it'll be very close though. But I think there's potentially a possibility that they could take 4th.
I'd be very surprised if that happened, but you never know. It's Formula One. Anything happens, and it normally does. So yeah, I'll just skip past Aston Martin just for the moment, because I'm going to give Mercedes to Owain. Sir Lewis in 7th, George Russell in 8th in this race. Probably threatened to do a bit more, but it's just not been their weekend this weekend on the whole. Hamilton having a whole host of problems in the shootout qualifying, sprint qualifying, whatever it's called these days. And George just kind of being off for most of the weekend, really. It's just, I guess they're going to chalk it up as not a particularly great one for them.
No, it seems like they're sort of they're not regressing or anything, but I think the highs of the upgraded car have gone away a bit. Obviously Hamilton, we'll put it this way: the fifth place, qualifying in fifth was the best that we saw of Hamilton this weekend, and unfortunately him and Russell didn't manage to do too much in the sprint, despite the switch to soft at the right time for Russell. And in the race, obviously, Russell did make 3 places, but Hamilton lost similarly, sort of lost 2 places. So they've ended up one after the other. And we didn't see that sort of characteristic race pace that we normally see out of the Mercedes. I think if it had been a bit hotter, we would have maybe seen a bit more of it, had more, even more degradation that would have come to them. But we didn't, they didn't really have the speed, and they're just not quick enough. And I think, they'll come out of this, they'll be fine, and they're getting a new upgrade next week, I believe, in Silverstone. But for right now, it's unfortunately it's just a little bit disappointing for them, and it's one of those times that they're just going to have to power through it. You could hear the frustration in them. I think they're it's a decent performance-ish, but they have gone backwards.
Yeah, they have done. Hamilton was complaining a lot on the radio about his car apparently not being able to steer, which is slightly over-exaggeration. It seems to be going around the corners all right, but by his standards, probably not so. But the more important thing for them is probably the fact that they've not really lost much ground to Aston Martin. Aston Martin had Fernando Alonso in 6th and Lance Stroll down in 10th, getting the last point. Tom, I guess not too bad of a weekend for them. I think we do have some news potentially about Aston Martin. I may have heard that, but
yes.
But yeah, how do you rate their weekend overall? Because Stroll surprisingly beat Alonso for a change yesterday, but today he seemed well off, really.
Yeah, Stroll's had his best moment of the season, and now he's just going to go back into his shell. Let's be fair. Today Aston Martin, they didn't really do the best strategy. They did a bit of a Ferrari strategy. We'll get on to Ferrari strategy. Looking at you three's top suggestions. It's just Aston, they double stacked and they weren't good stops, and Stroll really lost out because he was down to about P12 or 13 or maybe even P14 at one stage. Like he said, ultimately got the last point. Alonso started on hards, which had there not been an early safety car and then a relatively early VSC, could have probably worked out, but the medium sort of seemed to hold on better than we expected. And the hards, they were all right, but they were definitely the sort of the medium seemed to be the good sort of like early to middle stint tyre. Given all the sort of hype around Aston Martin at the start of the season, where people were sort of doing videos saying, the longest gap between a pole position or the longest gap between a race win or a world championship, all the rest of it, and people sort of treating Alonso like the second coming of Christ this season, they have fallen off the pace, you could say, because if they were clearly best of the rest, they should have been P3 or P2 or nobody's going to be unless Max has it, as we know, unless Max has like a mechanical retirement, nobody's going to be P1. So but they should be right up there, and they were behind. Well, they were behind a McLaren and both the Ferraris, and I think they'll rue opportunities missed this weekend. Potentially.
Not too great for them, but part of the reason why they were relatively so far down the order is because we had a resurgent Ferrari this weekend, Sophia. For once, they actually, followed through on the pace and the promise. Yes, potentially could have done something different with the strategies, but I don't think whatever they did, they would have been able to beat Max Verstappen today. He was just too quick. Charles Leclerc coming home on the podium in 2nd, Carlos Sainz in 4th. Maybe he could count himself a little unlucky with that, but still a much better day for Ferrari today.
100%. It was so nice to see actually having Ferrari do well. Like you said, there's a few maybe dodgy kind of strategy calls, but again, that's Ferrari. That's literally their blueprint when it comes to race weekends is the questions. Sainz had penalty as well for track limits. Like I said, mostly drivers had penalties. I think Charles had some really good battles overall. Sainz and Checo as well, battling back and forth with the DRS, and the power that they were doing and going on the inside on some of these turns was absolutely crazy. I think he was my second driver of the day, because of how good the battles were with Perez. It shows how powerful Ferrari is getting to be with the Red Bull. They're in a good contender potentially when battling out with Max and Checo for the rest of the grid. I think, given the fact that they started P2 and P3 and finished second and fourth, I think that's a great result for them. Like I said, top points, well, some of the top points for the team, needed for the constructors to stay at fourth. But I'm really excited. I'm hoping that this is now the turnaround. We always know Ferrari mid-season kind of comes out of the bag with some actual good performances. So they've just done it about 4 races a little bit early for it. But we'll see. It was a great day for them, and for the fans, definitely needed that as well.
Absolutely, yeah. It's good to see someone challenging at the end of the day. And Charles Leclerc held out for some time against Max, which is something that's more than what we've seen in a lot of races this season. And we're going up to Silverstone next, which is a race that they won last season. So you never know. There's always a chance. But yeah, so we'll talk about the guy who finished in third next, Owain. Some people, most people did give Norris the driver of the day in our internal vote for Grid Talk, but some people gave Sergio Perez today the driver of the day, which is fair enough, really. Started 15th after absolutely awful qualifying for him on Friday, and finished in third in the end. You can't really ask much more than that, to be honest, with how far he started down the grid and how the race kind of went with the multiple safety cars and stuff.
Yeah, I think it's fairly decent from Perez after obviously a dodgy, first couple of days in the weekend. Starting qualifying 15th because he couldn't keep it within the white lines, and then obviously having a bit of a sort of having a really weird sort of incident with Max on track where I think he tried to sort of show him, close the door on him, but obviously it didn't really work, and obviously he ended up significantly further behind. But so it was always going to be difficult starting where he did today, after the sort of kicking that he's taken, particularly publicly from the Red Bull decision makers, from Horner particularly. I think he's turned it around because it would be easy to let, he's a seasoned guy, but it would be easy to let the pressure of that, to take away from your performance, and could even have had an even worse race, and we could be talking about how he'd finished in third from the bottom rather than third in at all. He'd made his way back up to the podium from quite far back, and it was a difficult race. It's not like he was being let through or anything like that. Obviously he doesn't even seem to have the speed to be able to just blast past people, but he was putting the manners on people who had younger tyres than he did. Which is probably a testament to the car. As much as it may be said that it is the fastest car, but I think he sort of brought it back, and you can go out of the weekend going, yeah, I did a decent job there.
Yeah, much better for him for sure. I mean, he's not had, we've touched on it at the show, quite a few times. He's not had the best run recently, but that today was probably what you'd expect from him. You could definitely argue that Max Verstappen probably would have won the race from 15th if he started there, but that's Max Verstappen. That's a 2-time champion, soon to be a 3-time world champion. He's just different gravy at the end of the day. There's not many people that are anywhere near his level, and that's just a fact. Just a fact of life at the moment, and that's basically what I'm coming to you about now, Tom, as well. I mean, he won by over 20 seconds during the sprint, which was a 20-odd lap race, and he did the same again here as well. He would have done, the same again, had he not pitted on the last few laps to go for soft tyres. I mean, he's the only guy that could do something like that. It's just ridiculous the advantage he's got over the field. I mean, we were timing it as well while we were watching it live. We were saying, how many seconds is he going to gain here? And he gained 3 seconds on Leclerc on that last lap alone. It's just another level right now, and it's very difficult to see how anybody else can win. Just the form is in, what is it, like 5 wins in a row, something like that for Max? Take it away. Stage is yours.
Well, I mean, there's not much more to say, is there? I mean, you said the stage is yours. Good night. He's just in such a purple patch of form, and he's completely gelled with that car. I've said it before, and I'm not going to wax lyrical again because people probably stick to the back teeth of it. But he's just, it's the only part of his racing which you think needs a bit of work is his race starts, and we saw that almost come to a head yesterday. But again, you pulled it back and off he went, and then today, covered off the Ferraris, and after the safety car just went quite early, going through turn 9. I thought he would have bolted later, but yeah, he was already well ahead, and he pulled that gap. We were saying, I said it, that he doesn't need to pit for fastest lap, but then he is a born and bred racer. You look at his parents, both racing drivers and all the rest of it. So it is quite literally in his DNA. We joked that he would have ended up driving into the pit lane anyway, saying, "Come on, put the tyres on, as long as it doesn't turn into Monaco 2016." Sorry, Danny. And then just the gap I think was something like 2.2, maybe 2.5 seconds behind Leclerc when he came out of the pits, and he ended it, I think, 5 point? I don't know.
Half or something,
yeah, I think it might have even been 6 seconds. TLDR, he blasted it on that last lap. And absolutely flew. He set a purple middle sector. He was on sauce, charged up the battery, blah blah blah. Yeah, I mean, not much more you can say. He did exactly what he needed to, got the win. It was never in doubt, and I don't think anybody's going to stop him.
Yeah, and it's one of his best tracks as well. I think that's his 4th win at the Austrian Grand Prix, which is a record. So the guy is absolutely on fire around that track. But speaking of the circuit itself, something we've got to touch on is the track limits. Now, it's been a talking point of the entire weekend. It always is around Austria, but it seems like it was even worse this time round. I mean, I've just got some of the stats here. I think we had 47 laps during qualifying on Friday deleted. I don't even know how many more laps other than that were deleted. But what I do know is that probably at least half of the grid ended up. So apparently we've just been informed that Nico Hülkenberg, just to add insult to injury, to rub a whole bottle of salt onto the rules, onto his wounds. Over 100 laps were deleted during the race for track limits, which is more laps than in the race itself. That's got to be a record. But yeah, Nico Hülkenberg being one of the ones to get a post-race track limits penalty, despite only doing about 20 laps and already being out. So what's the point? What's the point of adding 5 seconds onto the guy anyway? That just seems rude to me, I'll be honest. But my point is that it seems to be so much worse this year. I mean, Sophia, is there any reason for this? And why Austria? Why is it so bad around here? And do we need to take a look at it? Does something need to be done about this? Because quite frankly, it's a bit ridiculous, but at the same time, it's the drivers that are going over the white lines. So is it not them that's the ones to blame, really?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's turn 9 and turn 10. During qualifying, like you said, 47 laps, some of it was potentially due to wind coming in as well, slightly pushing the cars slightly over the line. But, I mean, literally the top pinnacle motorsport drivers, they should know where the line is, how to limit it. And it's not even just F1. We saw it in F2 and F3 as well this weekend when they were racing in Austria as well, how many track limits were happening. But 100, that's too much. I think every single driver, apart from Norris, which I'll speak about, he had so many track limits, but no black and white flag, no penalties. I think it was on Twitter, it was he had 4 laps in a row where he was over the line, but no kind of black and white flag, no penalties or anything. But I think almost every single driver had the flag. I think maybe only 2 or 3 probably did it. And then so many had close to getting the time-second penalties. You see on Twitter as well and on social media, all the drivers pretty much snitching on each other, saying they went over. It was Oprah as well, you get a penalty, you get a penalty, you get a flag. It was absolutely crazy. I think they should have had a stat on the side saying how many times they've done the track limits for the driver. That would be quite a cool analysis to see post-race now as well, which drivers had the most and if there was any more penalties from that as well. Obviously you mentioned Nico got 1 post-race for him, but there might be a few other ones that might be coming through as well. I know the stewards are probably going to be super busy till later on the whole day today.
Yeah, they are going to be very busy indeed. I mean, it's something that I think we actually touched upon on the days of the GH F1 podcast before Grid Talk was the thing, when we reviewed Austria 2019. Owain, you might be the person to review it with me. I can't remember, it was that long ago.
Probably, it was a while.
About 4 years ago now. But one of the things we touched on was when Leclerc and Verstappen were both battling, and it was we didn't know who actually won the race because I think one of them was potentially being investigated for a penalty. But I mean, we were complaining about that because the people who are leaving the track, they don't know really what's happened. They don't know whether their driver's going to finish in a certain position or whatever. It's all up in the air. But that is that, but on steroids this year. It's on a complete other level.
Well, it causes issues because we have no confidence. Even here, we have no confidence in the result. I think. Well, it could change, and we all know it could.
Absolutely,
What happens if there's an appeal by Mercedes and Norris drops it significantly?
Oh,
don't say that.
Don't say that.
Just-
Why would you say that?
Read the room, man.
Because it'll be funny.
No.
No, but ultimately, I think it is good that they're actually taking it and just being like, you know what, we're gonna penalise you properly. I think eventually the drivers will stop doing it, and I don't want to hear any of the. I hate it when they complain about it and say, the car won't turn, or it's so difficult to stay within track limits. But you managed it when it was wet on Saturday. You managed it when it was wet, when it would have been slower to go over the track limits. And to be fair, you can just drive the car slower. Like that will keep you within track limits, and you won't be getting a penalty. For the sake of, let's be honest, not much gain. We're talking milliseconds that you're going to be gaining on every single track limits infraction. As much as that extends right down the straight, but you're going to lose maybe a tenth or two. You can lose that in 5 seconds in a 5-second penalty. It's not hard. Just drive slightly slower.
It's Formula One drivers at the end of the day, and they're going to take any advantage they can get. To kind of go on that though, yes, you might not gain that much time, but is it not a tyre thing as well? Because you've got a less aggressive angle going into the corner, so you probably save a bit of tyres. But then again, you're running the risk of taking them on the curbs and picking up all sorts of crap that's out there.
I was going to say, every time you go over a curb, I've seen it happen many a time, is that you hit a curb wrong and you get a puncture for it, and that will ruin your race.
Yeah. So it's a tricky one. It's a very tricky one. I think this track is particularly bad for it just because it's turn 9 and 10, the final 2 corners, the high-speed right-handers. That's where most of the infringements were happening. Tom, what would you do? Would you change anything potentially with the track? I much prefer having it like this to having like the sausage curbs or having a more harsher gravel trap or something like that. It's a really tricky one, but at the end of the day, it is the drivers and they are being punished for it. At least the stewards are doing something about it and not just standing for it.
It sounds like a skill issue to me, mate. Sausage curbs are not the answer because those things are positively lethal, as we've seen in years gone by. So those are not the answer. I don't really know. It's one of those things where it's like drivers have been edging their luck for a few years, and then we always had, certainly in the past, I think coming into about 2020 or 2021, I should say, there were sort of, each circuit would be like, okay, well, where is track limits? It sort of seemed to vary by circuit. Because some places it would be the white line, some places it would be the initial curb, it would be the double curb, whatever. Whereas now, track limits is the white line, end of story, simples. So it's like, don't moan about it because them's the rules, Sonny Jim. And if you keep going over it, we'll just get good. I don't really know what else to say because it's like, Owain sums it up really well, and I'm just here to make memes about it by this point. So it's like, I know that obviously racing drivers want to eke out every single tenth, 100,000, millisecond, whatever, whatever minute increment of time it may be. But it's like just, there's only so far you can push it, and it's like, we saw it today. I honestly think more drivers got penalties, or at least black and white flags for track limits than drivers didn't. Because it was like a roulette wheel at the top of the screen. By the time we got to the end of the race, it's just like bing, 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 bing. Grand prize, 5-second penalty.
Who's it going to be next?
Yeah. Well, honestly, mate, it was like a lucky dip by the end of it. So it's just like, but it's just, I don't really know what else you can do. Maybe fit bonus ears at the end of the track, so if they go over, they just get spiked and just, it's like, yeah, that's what you get for going over the track. No, but if I wanted that, I'd just bring back the sausage curbs, and that's not the answer. Punishing drivers in terms of time won't do an awful lot because they will just keep pushing it. It's got to be something that's an actual deterrent without being unsafe, and that is a very, very fine. I ain't got the answer. Flipping heck. No. I'm just a weirdo who watches F1 and works in IT. Don't ask me for the answer. I don't know, but maybe if they just have like a bit of gravel or something, so that if they stick a wheel slightly offline, like of the inside of cops, it'll just spit them out or something. I'm not sure.
It's a very contentious issue at the end of the day. It's there's no there's no perfect solution, I think, to it at the end of the day. And because drivers are always going to take every advantage they can do, because that's what they're paid to do, for lack of a better term. But then if they start complaining about it on the radio, it's just getting a bit ridiculous at that point. I'm not sure what they're doing at that point. But yeah, that is all the drivers, that's all the teams. I will give a mention that if you did enjoy this podcast, you can give us a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and really do appreciate this. And if you're watching on the YouTube as well, and if you're one of the 72% of people who are not yet subscribed to the channel, please consider helping us out with a like and subscribe on there. Really do appreciate it. Something I do want to quickly touch on though, I think the 3 of us voted for Norris for driver of the day. Tom, you were the odd one out. You went for Sergio Perez. No, it's a good choice. I'm not criticising, but I just want to hear your thoughts on how Perez was today, because it was impressive from him to nearly get second in the end. It wasn't that far off, and with how he's been, and as well, I don't think we've mentioned the fact that he was ill at the start of the weekend. He missed his press media duties on Thursday because of that. So for him to come back like that, it's pretty impressive, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's a result that Perez really needed. I was a bit concerned coming into this weekend, especially with him being a bit ill. We weren't necessarily going to see that. We're perhaps going to see him getting to the points, we get, P8, P7, maybe P6, like we kind of saw in Canada. But no, P3 and wasn't Leclerc. It was Sainz's bad. Sainz didn't make it easy. Russell didn't make it easy. But Perez did what he needed to do. He made good moves. He shut the door. He stopped. Drivers doing switchbacks. You could argue that maybe, Max went away from that. Well, yeah, but Max is something else. He's not human by this point. And Perez is not in the same echelons as Max and Hamilton and, maybe, Leclerc, Russell, that top creme de la creme. He's a good, solid B-tier driver. He's basically like a good Bottas, because he can actually do it when it's needed. Yeah, so it's. I was pleased, genuinely, really pleased with him to see it, and then also yesterday in the sprint, where he really got his elbows out and sort of said to Max initially, I'm not here to play second fiddle, and then Max just went psych, and then just put him in his place. But it's that aside, it was a result that he really needed, and it's good for him, especially with him being ill, because he sounded ill after quali on Friday. He sounded rough, man. But yeah, no, good. Glad to see it, and hopefully it will stick a proverbial finger up to those who are saying, Perez out.
To whom it may concern.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think this is basically him saying, Danny Ricky won this seat. Come take it, son.
Don't tempt fate too much on that one.
That's not going to happen.
No, it's not going to happen.
It's going to happen.
I don't see that happening. I don't want Daniel to go back to Red Bull full time. It's just going to get beat by Max like most people would. I just don't want to see it.
Stick him in the AlphaTauri.
Oh, no.
Take over the Prix.
Oh no, don't. Can you imagine?
Well, no, because that's probably going to be Andretti next year by the sounds of it. So.
Rumours are to be believed. Yes. I do want to give a mention to one of those people who were potentially concerns. Tom Horrocks obviously betting that Sergio Perez will not win a race for the rest of the year. Well, I'm going to go on record as doing a counter to that. I bet that he will win a race for the rest of the season, and my forfeit is the same as Tom's if that doesn't come true. So I would present an episode of Grid Talk in my underwear and a sombrero. So I don't know if anybody wants to see that, but that's happening. So no matter what, one of us is going to do that. That's the challenge for the rest of this year. So I'm going to regret that. Anyway, so Grid Talk is available on YouTube, where most episodes are recorded live, just like this one, as well as Amazon Fire, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Music, Verbal, Pocket Cast. Just search for F1 Grid Talk on all of those to go through our back catalogue of shows, which is over 300 episodes now, which is just absolutely bonkers. Cannot get over that. Obviously, we have our regular shows. We have the qualifying shows, we have the sprint shows, the race shows, the previews, and as well, Sophia, Formula Talk.
Yeah, me and Tom do weekly episodes discussing F1 Academy, I was about to say W Series, but obviously that is
Not anymore.
not anymore. F2 and F3, we will be covering a bit of FRECA, especially given some of the situations that happened in Spa yesterday with the driver's passing, unfortunately, and condolences as well to the family and those that knew him. We'll probably briefly discuss it, but obviously not go into detail in the next episode. But yeah, we talk about IndyCar as well. It'll be an interesting one for this race review from Austria because we had disqualifications, we had track limits, we had penalties upon penalties. But I think our predictions were actually quite good as well, which doesn't happen that often. If you listen to our episodes, we make some random predictions and bold podiums, but it actually came true, most of them, this weekend. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely check out that. I do love listening to the roundup of the feeder series, especially when I can't catch them live because there's just so much action on the track. It's hard to keep up sometimes. And yeah, another mention as well is that after 4 years of mentioning it about better lights, mics and recording equipment, we've got it. Hopefully you can hear and see the difference with some of that. Ruby's been producing this episode live as well, so massive shout out to her for that. You may have seen the hand appear at some point to hand me an iPad just here. That was very smooth, so...
Don't ever say we're not professional here, George.
Yeah, we got the mics and everything.
Exactly, better lights, mics and recording equipment. It's finally happened after all this time. But yes, we will be back soon with plenty more F1 content. Obviously, we've got Silverstone coming up at the weekend. We have the preview for Silverstone on Monday, and we've got Formula Talk in the meantime as well to preview the F2 and F3 action from Silverstone. Stick around if you're listening to the live stream. We'll continue on that. We've got some questions here from the people watching along, which is really, really appreciated. Thank you for that. But yeah, until next time, thank you very much, and goodbye. All right, so let's go through some of these questions. There's some really good ones on
I'm going to buy a sombrero.
Oh yes.
And it's just gonna sit in the back of my shop.
You're getting ever closer as we get towards the end of the season.
Yeah.
And then you give it to me like after a bit, and it's just at the back of my shop.
I reckon Singapore you're going to be wearing a sombrero.
No, it has to go through the whole season though. If Perez doesn't win a race, it has to go the whole season without winning a race.
Yeah.
What if he does win a race?
Well, then Tom has to wear it. He loses his bet.
Oh,
Tom Horrocks. One of us is going to wear the sombrero and not a lot else. But it just depends. It just depends. I mean, it could happen. If he wins Singapore, then Tom Horrocks has to do that. So if you're watching, Tom, it's on you, my friend.
I'm buying that sombrero. I'm not allowing either of you to wriggle out of this.
I'm not. I'm committed.
I can't get a sombrero.
Well, we found one.
Oh, no. I'll find one.
I will drive from South Wales and drop one off at Tom's house.
You won't need to. He's going to pick it up at the delivery office.
Yeah.
Just ship it.
Oh, God. Oversized package, definitely with sombrero though. You won't fit that. You won't fit that in the post box. Anyway, so Phil Matthew, my spirit animal, as some of you may have seen on my shirt, has asked during the live stream, how quick did you all go for a drink with the predictable results at the front? Well, I mean, we got drinks beforehand, didn't we? Very handily supplied by the Seven Oaks in Manchester. Thank you again for letting us do this here.
Yours was supplied. I had to pay for this one.
No, but the thing is though, right? I don't think it was. We were saying during the race, like we've had a lot worse races this year. There's been today was all right. I mean, yes, the winner was pretty predictable, but the rest of the action through the field, it was pretty good. It was pretty non-stop, to be honest.
Definitely.
The only position that was guaranteed today was Max in P1, and every other position behind that, even sort of P2 for a while, is like we didn't know which way it was going to go, and. It's like, yes, you can argue it is a bit boring because, F1, right, it's not a spec series and it's never going to be. So it's never going to be like F2, F3, like we say. But it was still an absolute banger of a race behind P1. And thankfully, I say thankfully, even as a Max fan, we didn't see any of him out front. We saw him take the lead back from, was it Sainz or Leclerc? It was
Leclerc.
It was Leclerc, I thought so, yeah. Once Max took the lead, we didn't see much of him again, and fair enough, because he just sailed off into the sunset. Well, I say sunset, sailed off into the clouds. It's just, it's Austria got extended today, as we heard, until 2030, so big pog.
What did you just say?
Pog.
Big hog.
What does that mean?
What?
Poggers. Absolute
know-
poggers.
What?
Absolutely
You're
poggers
speaking a different
moment.
language.
Wait, hold on. How do you not know what pog means?
I'm not a
No.
I'm with Sophia on this one. I have no idea. What does it mean? Does it mean it's good?
There's a
Yeah,
debate on
good.
the sofa.
Just say it's dope, bro. God.
Oh God. American man.
I will not say that. I will absolutely not say
It's
that.
totally rad, bro.
Ruby, can we turn George's mic off? No, damn it. Yeah. But yeah, no, joking aside, and first of all, get with the blood, is, it was a very, very good race. And, I'm not just saying that because I love the circuit in Austria. It's fast, it's flowing, and, it's got, good braking zones into turn 1, turn 3, which is turn 2, but it's technically turn 3, but all that nonsense.
It's turn 2 in our hearts.
Is it? Yeah, yeah. Unless you're Lewis Hamilton with Nico Rosberg. Yeah.
No, because Nico Rosberg doesn't think that's a turn. He thinks it continues straight.
Yeah, he
Keeps going.
Yeah, he was looking for the old layout, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah. Also, last time Mercedes won there. But yeah, no, it was. Phil, I know you're not a fan of Max. You've made it a little bit clear in the past. Just a little,
God.
just a little bit. But yeah, no, it's if you ignore P1, which is the same as what we had with when Hamilton was dominating, look at what's going on behind.
It's different though, mate. It's just functionally different, and the difference is because I support Lewis.
Well, that sounds like a you problem.
Hey, hypocrisy's really cool.
Yeah. How are those side pods working out?
Shut up.
It's getting heated on the post show. Anyway, next question.
That's just the lies.
It's alright, he's just
Last
annoyed.
time we were ever doing live.
Tom's just annoyed I beat him in the game.
Oh, I have no issue admitting that you're better than me in the game, but I will put you in the wall next time, pinky promise. Moving on.
They're talking about the F1 game, I hope.
Not on the M62 lead of Manchester.
If you're on the M62, you've got lost.
Yeah.
Worth it. I will give a mention as well that obviously we did hear that over 100 laps were deleted during the race for track limits. The stewards have apparently noticed that, which yes, we have noticed. We all have noticed that.
Is that not to?
And they've said to race control that the classification has to change. So it's good that they're looking at it. How that's going to change, I don't know, but we'll see. I'll be interested to see what they actually do with that one. Jared Bradley, one of our longest time listeners. Hi Jared, how are you doing? He said, I think it's the track design. I think this is referring to the runoff areas and the penalties and stuff of track limits. I think it's the track design. Other tracks force a runoff and rejoin, or you're on the gravel. Do they need to make the side narrower so that they end up in the gravel? It's a tricky one because it did used to be the case that more gravel tracks was the way they went when it came to runoff, but they've kind of gone away with that now to just do like the grasscrete or whatever you want to call it, just so cars can rejoin. I suppose if you have cars going in the gravel at those final corners, they're out. I think we saw that with Hamilton years ago in qualifying, if memory serves me.
It was last year in the middle sector as well.
Yeah, so
Slid off.
there is gravel at Austria. It's not one that's
Yeah.
like it's not like I don't know Saudi Arabia or Abu Dhabi or something where there's no gravel. They've got something there, but it still doesn't seem like enough to deter them.
I mean, oh sorry.
That's fine.
Oh right. I mean, you could put a strip of what you could do is you wouldn't have to go. You don't have to go all or nothing on it. You could go right. We're gonna have the runoff, the tarmac runoff after, but right next to the circuit, you could have it be self-policing with a strip of grass or of real grass or strips of. It would probably have to be gravel because otherwise they'll just run it until it's dirt again. But yeah, I mean, you do have to be careful with that, obviously, because you don't want to have the level be too high and then have someone come on, end up there, and you don't want to have basically, a more natural sausage curb and have the cars get launched. Austria is difficult because you've got the bikes, and you have to be careful of the bikes, which is why there aren't sausage curbs like there are at other circuits. So, yeah, I think it's difficult. I think the strip of gravel idea is annoying, but that's an infrastructure change.
I've got an idea. I've got an idea.
What?
I'm going to say to you, Hockenheim 2018. you remember when the cars were sliding off left, right, and centre?
Mm-hmm.
Part of that was behind the last turn, the drag strip, which is wet. Just fit that tarmac to behind all the corners and just have beanies sprinklers.
Oh,
they won't put a wheel out there again, will they, son?
You can even do like how Paul Ricard is, how that is, like the blue kind of gravel.
Ooh.
Obviously, not. Oh,
Well, no, because you could have like sort of a thing like similar to that, because that's a very abrasive stuff
Yeah.
apparently. Why don't you have
It's
it?
abrasive on my eyeballs when I try and watch it.
Yeah. Hold on, it doesn't need to be
I feel
that
like I'm
colour.
hallucinating.
It doesn't need to be that colour, but it could just be a grip of stuff.
Yeah.
A strip of stuff that's like that makes your tyre grip significantly worse the moment you go out there.
Like water.
Because the issue is as well with Austria, with how strong the wind is, and like I said, and how it was from qualifying, it is pushing the cars slightly over as well, which is out of their control. So you can't have too close of a gravel, because otherwise they're just going to be binning it into it, and Carlos Sainz would be practically there every corner, every lap, with how much he likes this gravel. But
Well, his dad is a
My
rally
father
driver.
like son.
Yeah.
he was at the race as well, his dad, who's presenting trophies for F2 and F3, which is quite funny. It's weird as well to have him there. But yeah, if you do the Paul Ricard, it makes sense. Put it as red, slightly over, move the gravel a little bit past. It makes sense because, like I said, the wind is quite a big factor as well with the track limits with that. But also, it's on the drivers as well. They need to kind of take onus more than anything else. I guess like having a monitor maybe even in the car to kind of monitor it all the time as well might be something, or a sensor might be something that might be good where it flashes on the screen every time. It'll be distracting, but like it'll be like a
Well,
small.
it's what you get in the game, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, I
Why
don't know. I
not?
don't play it.
Well, you do get that in the game. I get it
Yeah.
a lot in the game
Trust me,
anyway.
Trust me, I've done enough challenge minutes. I can confirm it is in the game. Yes. I've had another thought. Just fit a dog collar so that every time they go over, it just electrocutes them. So they go,
Right,
Oh
anyway,
my
so
Jesus.
Well, you're going from the sublime to the ridiculous, though.
have you? Well, I would say have you met me before, but no, this is the first time in person.
this is the
But
first
you've
time
known
we've
me
met
long
in
enough to know what's gonna.
We should put that in the game. You'd be screwed.
What was the move?
Ryan Jones asks, is Max and Red Bull domination becoming boring? And who
Yes.
and how can they be stopped? I would say yes to the first part, but I wouldn't say yes to Formula One as a whole being boring, because obviously there's a lot going on. It's a 20-car race. There is a lot happening there. However, the amount that Red Bull, I mean, well, this is race 10 and Red Bull have won every race. I think Max has won 8 of them and Perez 2. So in that sense, it is quite boring. But something we also have to take into consideration is that, in a sense, it's not new. Formula One, most of the time, is dominated by one team, unfortunately. But the level at which Red Bull have been doing it this year so far has been borderline unprecedented.
It's interesting, the fans who are saying it's now boring are the Mercedes fans, but they had no problems doing that over the years of their dominance. Like, it's tit for tat for it. It's just, it's a new team, new-ish team kind of dominating. I think with some of the upgrades, and I think in the next couple of years, I think will be more interesting to see some more battling. But overall, yeah, it's Red Bull season. We've already said it multiple times on podcasting and even just in chats as well, that it is Red Bull's to lose, and I doubt that they will lose it. It's always the lower team that's now kind of like what the battlings are for it. But yeah, it is sometimes boring, but it's all right to an extent.
Sorry, mate, go on.
I was going to say, I think we do have to wait. Like, obviously, the regulations are in place now, but so that there should be sort of a negative feedback loop to success. I think Red Bull have just done a bang-up job. So we're going to have to wait a few. Like, we need to hang fire and just be like, we need to wait and see that the regulations do work, because it could be that, you know, in 10 years we're sitting here going, and I know that's annoying to say, oh, in 10 years it might be better, but give it a few seasons to work itself out, to get to have the natural sort of ebb and flow of everything. You know, it was always going to take a correction period. It wasn't going to be fixed overnight. At least we've taken the step, and with this sort of the negative feedback loop and the cost cap and all that sort of thing, we've now curtailed to the two big things that really push teams to be so dominant. I mean, I think Red Bull could be the last truly dominant team we actually see. I hope.
No, you are such a Mercedes fan.
Sorry, I don't understand how. Sorry, I understand how negative feedback loops work.
The doctor in engineering pending. Not quite there yet, but you're getting there. So Master of Engineering though now.
No.
You're not a Master of Engineering?
No, I skipped
You're a
a step.
bachelor like me?
I skipped a
Oh
step.
God.
Too smart, that's why I skipped a step. Or not smart enough, one of the two.
Whichever one you want it to be.
Which, oh God.
Depends who's asking.
To answer the second part of Ryan's question though, who do you think is the most likely to be able to stop Red Bull? I would wager Mercedes, to be honest.
Oh, easily.
Yeah.
Unsurprisingly, Owain agrees. Sophia?
Yeah, I would say probably. They're more consistent.
What, are you gonna bet on Ferrari to do it?
No,
No.
absolutely not. I reckon the odds are if you bet £5 on that, you'll lose £5.
Might lose £10 on that.
Yeah, how much you want to
I'm
bet?
sure people can't believe if you do.
50% welcome bonus.
Yeah.
So you can bet £7.50.
Absolutely.
Oh, there was a
Absolutely.
fiver though. That's not too bad.
Absolutely, you can. I don't think anybody's going to do it this year. I really don't.
Nah.
But longer
That-
term, who do you think's most likely to?
Well, Ferrari will just pit for Inters when it's bone dry or something.
Will we do the first stop? The
Free
first
stop?
stop today?
Yeah,
Question?
plan A. Yeah, but
Very
no,
questionable.
yeah, or provided they carry on not inventing, as Carlos said this time last year. But yeah, no, it's looking at seriously looking at who can take it to them. Mercedes have an awful lot of resource, and they are not 8-time constructor champions for no reason. And they have 2 fantastic drivers, facilities, all the rest of it. Yeah. Aston Martin are obviously building something. Quite literally, they're building a new factory. I think it's open now.
Yep.
And they've got Dan Fallows, who was Adrian Newey's understudy. Pardon you, whoever that was. And then I think there was the Manchester Metro. And you wager Aston Martin, but maybe not. Because bearing in mind this is the first season that they've had where we've gone whoa with that team, because they were always decent. If you Joe Hart. There you are, George. When they were Force India, then obviously they fell off when they became Aston Martin and whatever. We've also got Audi coming in 2026, who are not coming in just to be a title sponsor like Alfa Romeo. They are probably putting in resources in there, but they're not going to be like a title sponsor. They're going to be a works team. So who knows? And by that point, like you said, Owain, a very good point, joking aside about the negative feedback, loop and all the rest of it. It is, hopefully going to have a bit more of a level playing field, and we're always going to see different philosophies, and different teams are always going to do better than others because of resources and because of facilities, and those are things which they've built prior to these caps and all the rest of it coming in. And everybody has made very good points, apart from myself, that the F1 is sort of like, it's not levelling out, but the changes are not going to happen overnight, and we've seen that. And let's not forget, Red Bull, they have Adrian Newey, who is, this is his 201st win in F1, 101 wins with Red Bull, which is mad. And he is incredibly intelligent and really understands aero and all the rest of it. So it's going to take a while for other teams to catch up. So that's why the gap is so big at the minute. But it just, like George Michael says, you've got to have faith, and it will happen.
I don't think we get a George Michael
Inspirational
reference.
words.
Yeah,
It was over to you.
I continue to surprise you. I think I need to go home now. It's only going to take me 4.5 hours.
Only
Sorry,
got a
have
few
you
more
been
questions.
there
We can do this.
Yeah.
Oh, we've been asked as well to give our podium predictions for Silverstone. I mean, I'm not going to be on the preview, so I might as well give them. I can't really look past Max Verstappen, to be honest, for P1. Second, I'll go Sainz, just because it looks a lot better Ferrari, and obviously he won last year. Third, probably Perez again. Sophia?
I think I'm on the preview, but it'll probably be the same. I might change it, but I think, definitely Max for the win. I think P2, let's go with Charles. Why not? Similar to you with the Ferrari, but then P3, I want to say George Russell. Throw it in for that one, not Lewis Hamilton. No, just stir the pot a little bit.
Owain?
I can't see anything but a max P1, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Obviously. And then, just based off, this is a relatively similar circuit, so I'm probably going to go. You know what? I'm going to go with I'm going to go with no. I want to say Mercedes. I don't think the
You said a similar circuit. They locked out the 4th row in the result.
Hey, that's a locked out row. That's pretty good.
Still counts.
Still counts. No, it's probably going to be Ferrari. Let's be honest. You know, I don't see Perez.
No.
You know, Perez, I don't think can deal with Silverstone, even with this car. Unless it's hot, in which case, maybe.
I've looked at the forecast. It's not going to be hot, I don't think. Tom?
Oh, we've already had our summer in the UK. It's done and dusted.
Yes.
Yeah, we've had our week in June. That's it. No, I think barring nothing going catastrophically wrong, Max it's just hard luck past him. And I know it's a bit boring to talk about, but yeah, I'm gonna say I think Ferrari P23.
Any preference?
The red ones.
You know what I meant.
They do not red Ferraris.
Well, no, they did that burgundy one that looked like lipstick.
I think that's still red.
Like lipstick.
Yeah.
Surely there's a lipstick colour that looks like what Ferrari look like now. Like,
If there's not and people do it, I want credit.
I was just saying, have you not used the MAC? The MAC lipstick.
Ferrari, number 55.
I think you know the answer to that question before you asked it.
I don't know.
Well, yeah, well, I'm sure I'll find someone who's got some. But no, I would say, I'm going to say Sainz P2 because obviously he won here. He won at Silverstone last year, and I think he's beginning to get under Leclerc's skin.
He's definitely been closer recently, and Sainz, we know how he's a talented driver. He's just not really done that well this season overall.
How many times have we seen like Leclerc in front of Sainz, and Sainz is being held up this year alone?
Yeah.
I'm losing count.
It's every time.
Yeah.
Straight line speed for Ferrari, it's not been good for them, so they can't pass very easily. There you go. Last question on the live stream here. M. Lay, I apologise if I'm saying that wrong, has asked a very poignant question. I think we can definitely talk about this for some time. They've asked, when do you think, if ever, in brackets, we will see a woman driver in F1? Now, Sophia.
We have.
Again, I think what they're talking about, though. See it again. And it's something that I think we've spoke about it on Formula Talk, and I've spoke about it before on the podcast. I feel like there's no reason why we shouldn't have one. There's no reason why a female could not compete in Formula 1. But for some reason, the stars have not aligned yet. And it's like, when is it going to happen?
Yeah, so many can of worms, that question. I mean, we talk about it when we're talking about F1 Academy and how that's kind of being
handled.
Yeah, not the best handled. I'm hoping next season will be a lot better. Like I said, I've mentioned it on Formula Talk a few times about the support that they get and everything. But I mean, there is other females that you can look at that are doing so well. We'll take like Iron Dames, for example, being P4 in the Super Bowl. We've had a women driver win in WEC as well, Rally. You have Jamie Chadwick competing in Indy Next this season. It is possible. The only thing is like funding is the biggest thing, and then also just the strength to handle G-forces. I think that's also probably a really big one that's kind of not been talked about a lot, is the neck strength and like the upper body strength needed to be a driver. Females are genetically not able to, so it is a lot harder for us to get the muscle and the strength for it. And even speaking, like I was working to some W Series drivers in the past, and like just even when they're racing in F2 or even other disciplines, how much of a strength that they need in training consistently for it, and it's a lot. And how do you train for it as well? Like after a while, you also plateau it sometimes in the strength as well. So I think it is possible. I don't think it will be in the next couple of years. I'm thinking probably once how F1 Academy is, we still don't even know as well if you win F1 Academy, if you go into F3 or F2. You have an F3 driver, Sophia, who's racing in Formula 3, who's not in the points, but has been quite consistent in the top-ish half of the drivers list out of the 33 drivers on the grid. But we'll see. Like I said, I think probably 5 years, 5-6 years, maybe we'll see a woman driver.
Who would you say if you had to put money on it? I know it's so tough, isn't it? Jamie Chadwick's the one for me where I look at her and I think, if anybody's going to do it, she is, because she was just a cut above the rest in W Series when she was winning her championships.
Yeah, and she's had some good battles in Indy Next. I watch it occasionally when it's on Sky, which is very rare sometimes because it overlaps with F1 on. But I think, yeah, she's probably the best. I think maybe even somebody that's not even known very well is that could be, or somebody that's moved from WEC or rally or any other disciplines kind of moving in. I think that's probably another case in point. Maybe some of the Iron Dames girls doing F1, we'll see. We've seen it in Indy 500 as well. There was Catherine that raced in Indy 500 this season as well, which was, I think she was like the third female to race in Indy 500, so could be her as well. But yeah, probably Jamie's probably the best one off the top of my head that probably wouldn't make it into F1. But it could be somebody new as well that we just don't fully speak or know about.
She's still associated with Williams, I think, Chadwick?
Yes, she is.
Yeah, so she's got a foot in the door a little bit there, so it would be interesting to see, because I don't think she's had a F1 test yet.
No.
Is there anything?
No, because of her points, her licensing.
Oh, right. Well, hopefully. Oh, no, she's an Indy Next, though, so.
Yep.
Yeah, she's not getting anything there.
Oh, so many hoops to jump through. It's so tough. I mean, it's tough in general, let's be honest. It's not just a issue in terms of female drivers, but it is very tough to get super license points, particularly if you're on the North American side of things, to be able to get into F1 or even get yourself into an F1 car in any capacity.
That's why a lot of them have left, like F2 and F3, Marcus Armstrong, Callum Ilott, they've all left and moved over to it. I could see it maybe going to FE, like Formula E for a bit, to try to get some points as well to do the F1 test. Then that's 4 disciplines she's raced in as well.
She would be very good if she could win in all of those, but I do think she's very good. So if anybody can do it, it's her, to be fair.
Definitely.
Do you guys want to weigh in on that at all? Or?
I don't think I've got anything to add to that. No, seriously, Sophia's just, I think of all the four of us, she's the best way to talk about it, and you talk about it very well, mate. So yeah, I've not got anything to add.
Cheers.
We do have an audience here, an audience of 2. Any you guys want to ask at all? Or? I feel a bit rude. No pressure. Just to not say anything. I mean, you've been sat there watching us. I really do appreciate you coming out to do this.
Yeah.
A whole 2 people.
We had others with 2 others as well.
Yeah.
There was a lot of people watching downstairs as well because there was also the cricket on at the same time.
No.
That's kind of question.
Fair enough.
That's what we're here for. Right. Well, I think nothing else to add. Then I think we'll call it there. Thanks for joining us, everybody on the live stream. Really do appreciate it. And hope to do this another time soon. It's been a lot of fun just doing it in person for a change. You know.
It seems to happen every time I buy a new car.
So what's that? Every couple of months?
To be fair,
joking.
I lasted 18 months before I bought this RS5.
Oh, okay, right. There we go. Clock's ticking now. Let's see how that. Let's see how it goes. No, thanks for everybody who joined on the live stream. Really do appreciate it. And yeah, we'll see you for the next grid talk soon.
Awesome.
Bye.
Bye.